Airbnb in general gets a very controversial rap. What is the best possible scenario that they could be in to get started? Talk to us about how the individuals that are treating it as a brand kind of here for the long term.
There's so much that has to do with the pricing, the reviews. You get one bad review, you're automatically put on page 7. So all these things have to be such a tight standard. But after a client books, your whole goal as a host is how can I get this person to come back to stay with us? We're positioning ourselves now as the host of Chicago.
Welcome back to another episode of Link Live. We're welcomed today by Sebastian, founder and CEO of the Dream Rental Chicago, as well as Plymouth Hotel Chicago. We're breaking down Airbnb Arbitrage, real estate, boutique hospitality, hotels. Sebastian is super honest, breaking down exactly what he did to get from Cutco, where he was selling knives, to having a 100-unit portfolio plus in rentals that him and his partner manage all across the country. And it's really what Link Live is all about, inspiring, motivating, and uplifting those that want more out of their career and showing them that it's possible. As always, thank you guys so much for supporting. So without further ado, let's hop into Link Live episode 19. Awesome. Link Live, we're back with another episode. Super excited for this guest today. We're welcomed today by Sebastian. Thank you for coming and joining us here in the studios today. Like every other show, I want to give our audience and the viewers kind of a foundation as to kind of your background, your early inspiration. So I want to start there, kind of like where were you raised? What was your upbringing like? What were some of your interests?
So grew up in Chicago, on the south side in Burbank. My family's from Poland, so growing up with very foreign parents, the mindset was to work as hard as possible to make things happen. So did well in school. I swam my whole life, so I swam for 10 years between the ages of 8 to 18. Went to the University of Illinois down in Champaign, and my sophomore year, I started working for Cutco Cutlery Vector Marketing. So I worked there for 10 years. And throughout those 10 years, I saved up some cash, wanted to get into real estate, but I didn't like the traditional multifamily model. Plus the cap rates in Chicago aren't that exciting. So we got into Airbnb in 2019, right before COVID. I saved up some cash. We wanted to buy a property, but we were afraid of it not working out. So we ended up renting a property that was for sale at the time. And the property was on the market for about a year and a half. It was a very unique scenario where the owner was passing away soon. The best friend was selling the property for the homeowner. And no one really wanted it because it was very unique to raise a kid in it. So we ended up convincing the owner and his best friend to let us rent the property until he got an offer to sell it. Of course, a month later, after we started running it, they got an offer. So we ended up purchasing the property by matching the offer. And that was our first Airbnb. A couple months went by. We saw it doing really well. We didn't really think COVID was a real thing. So we ended up getting 3 more units, and then COVID hit. We scrambled to make ends meet at that time, even though nobody was traveling, and the people that were traveling were locals that wanted to throw parties.
Yep.
Luckily, through some of those disaster scenarios, we got kicked out of some units, and we had a couple that we had long-term tenants in, and we survived. That Airbnb that we bought was actually part of an HOA that you were not allowed to have an Airbnb. So we didn't know that at the time. The owner didn't really tell us much, but we couldn't do it anymore, so we ended up selling that property. 2020, we met a family that renovated a big skyscraper on 21 East Chestnut. Got some units in that building, and then stayed with those about 6-7 units for the next year. COVID was starting to come to an end. We found a deal on a property. We ended up buying it. I still worked at Cutco at the time. My business partner and I worked our full-time jobs until 2023. I quit Cutco at the time, and then we started scaling this more and more and more. So now we're at 100-ish properties. Most of them are the arbitrage model, that we rent the property from the owner, and then we Airbnb it. we started managing some properties for the owners too. So now we have about 20, 25 properties that we manage for owners that own the property that essentially don't want to manage the property themselves.
Very cool. I want to break down a couple of things that you mentioned in there. What do you think are kind of the pros and cons between doing what you're doing and doing Airbnb arbitrage, or doing it the traditional way, versus like the kind of slow roll approach to buying a property, renting it out, and, you know, seeing how much you could cash flow on it?
Yeah, so the long-term tenant situation is challenging right now in this market because the mortgages for a property that you're buying are close to what the rent cap is for that property, unless you're really looking for a deal. Through the arbitrage model, over the years, rent is getting higher. So these properties aren't profiting as much as they used to. So we're actually like scaling back with some of those. But as long as you're in a good market, and I'm not talking about just Chicago, but closer to downtown, the Loop, River North, South Loop, the closer you are to the downtown area, at least in Chicago, the better it performs. And the reason why we still like the arbitrage model is we don't have to, as you said, risk a bunch of cash for a down payment for a property that might not fully work out. We still buy properties. We have 6 properties that we own now. And those properties that we own, we really want to make sure that it covers way beyond what the mortgage is. How we determine that is usually on the bed and bath count and the location. If it's a 5, 6, 7 bedroom house, they usually perform really well because there's not a lot of competition. On the multifamily side, it's either very similar multifamily units, but again, you're only capped at a certain rent amount for that area. So finding a good property with a good deal is just harder to find. With the arbitrage model, it's been similar cash flow for less money down, essentially.
Right. What would you say are some of the limitations in and around like Chicago and the Chicagoland area when it comes to Airbnb? Because I've heard in the past that Chicago is not the most Airbnb friendly city.
Yep.
Obviously, a lot of these buildings put restrictions on individuals like yourself trying to do what you're doing because they don't want the riffraff, they don't want the parties,
Exactly.
they don't want the people in and out. I guess like talk about some of those early experiences when you had to deal with that and you were running into that and that was maybe restricting your business, and then like talk about now, I guess maybe some of the systems or what you guys have put in place to work around them.
Yeah, great question. So, yeah, Chicago has a bunch of different regulations, which makes it really challenging. In a 4-unit building, you can only rent one of the units on Airbnb, or so anything from 1 to 4. So if it's a single family house, only that house can be rented as a Airbnb, or if it's up to a 4-unit building, only that one unit can be, and it's registered as a primary residence. So a lot of the owners that we manage the properties for, they'll manage it, or we'll manage it for them, and then they'll live in the property for part of the year as well, just to meet the regulations. And any buildings that have 5 units or more, you can do 25% or up to 6. So what we've done and what we do is meet with a lot of developers or a lot of new construction builders that, you know, have these multifamilies that have 20 to 40 units where we can max out the 6 units on. And ideally, we want them on one floor so we're not bothering the tenants, essentially. At the start of the journey, we had units all over a building, and that just did not work well because tenants would complain. Now, fast forward to today, we have units, again, on a single floor or stacked above each other, so that way they're not creating issues for tenants. What else have we done? We have cameras outside of our units, noise monitors. We do background checks, credit checks, ID verifications for our clients too, because it's really important that our guests are coming into a property that the tenants feel safe around, and also vice versa. We don't want to just send any tenant to stay at any single property. We want to make sure the right people stay in the right locations and properties.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there any funny stories from like your early days where you had to like deal with an issue and like go on site and like intervene yourself?
Yep. There's been a couple of those. So in 2019, at that property we bought, it was this lady's daughter's 30-year-old birthday party. And we thought it was just going to be a couple people. Get a call from the neighbors saying our fire alarm has been going off for hours if everything's all right.
Mm-hmm.
So we went to the property and water was gushing from the ceiling. She left the toilet running and she left the property overnight. So we came into massive water damage at that property and had to fix that, obviously. During COVID, there was a lot of massive parties. So I would have to come there. We finally have a security guard that we would come to the party with a security guard to call the cops and get them out of there. But there's been a couple scenarios of people smoking weed, massive parties, etc.
Yeah, I can imagine. Super interesting stuff. I want to peel it back a little bit, right? I want you to help people understand like how they could get involved in doing the same thing if they wanted to. But I kind of want you to debunk some of the misconceptions, right? Like I mentioned earlier in the episode, like I feel like Airbnb arbitrage and Airbnb in general gets a very controversial rap online and on social. And there's a lot of people misleading individuals. They're doing the coaching aspect of it without even, managing or owning any properties themselves. So I'd say like someone's in their, young to mid 20s, they're unhappy within their job. They understand they want to do a little bit more. What is the best possible scenario that they could be in to get started? And what would you recommend is like the most feasible route for that to happen?
So what's the most feasible route to make it happen for anyone that's 20 plus that wants some side cash?
Yeah.
So it's kind of a tricky question because the owners that we work with essentially don't want to deal with any of the riffraff parties, etc. So the best way that we've found to do it now is positioning ourselves to be a great host of Chicago and not only have a 5-star experience for our clients, but also for the tenants in the building. Mm-hmm. So why am I saying this is because the value add of us being in a building or a 20-year-old that wants to get into this journey is that they're paying rent on time. They're maintaining the building on a regular basis and it's in showroom condition 24/7. It has to be, or else the clients aren't going to be happy. To appeal it even deeper than that, it's really ensuring to the owner of any property that there's not going to be that riffraff. So making sure that you're doing all your background, you're getting the right systems in place so there's no issues and you don't have any type of bad guess. Because one bad guess, we have a couple properties that if we have one issue, we're out. Mm-hmm. Like the standards are really high with a lot of these owners. So if someone's just starting out, the easiest way to do that would be managing a property for an owner that has the property but doesn't want to deal with all the messaging, all the cleaning, all that stuff, because there's no risk.
Sure.
But if it's an arbitrage, I would say start with something a little bit cheaper, maybe in B or C class areas that you can be on the first floor of the building and you're not bothering tenants on the second, third, and fourth. And really taking care of it from the start. Like Airbnb isn't a passive income. It's a whole hospitality brand now. So many people put furniture up and design a property just to make some cash back in 2022, 2023. Those properties aren't surviving right now. So if it's someone starting out, get something small that has cheaper rents, that you don't have much to risk, and then just do everything in your power to make sure that the tenants in that building don't have any issues, essentially.
Yeah. You mentioned something right there when you said hospitality as well, that the groups or the individuals that are just kind of more or less staging a property,
Yep.
and it's pretty obvious and evident that they're lack of better terms, going into it cheaply, don't care as much about the tenants or their customers, are probably the ones that are not getting as many bookings, I would assume. But the people treating it as more so a holistic brand and experience, something that someone could look back on and say, okay, when I'm in that city, like, this is who I want to rent from. This is who I want to be with. Talk to us about that shift, and talk to us about how some of those people that were maybe just making some quick cash after COVID have kind of exited the space, and the individuals that are treating it as a brand and a hospitality-based business are now kind of here for the long term.
Yeah, 100%. So Airbnbs turned into such a social media algorithm platform where it's not just put a property on Airbnb and see it do well. There's so much that has to do with not only the listing itself and the design, but the wording of the listing, your title, your first 5 pictures, like that draws the client in there. But after a client books, your whole goal as a host is, how can I get this person to come back to stay with us again? So what we do now is really make sure that the client has a good experience. So if they want a restaurant booked, or if they want any recommendations, or if they want a car rental, or if they want, extra cleaning throughout their stay, like all of these things can be included. And we're positioning ourselves now as the host of Chicago. So we want someone to stay with us. If they don't know what they want to do in Chicago, they could come to us with any questions, and we can recommend them things or connect them with any type of vendor that we work with. So that's really how I feel like we're going to survive moving forward, is positioning ourselves as the host of Chicago. For the people that just set up their properties and forgot about them, or they don't forget about them because they're bleeding cash on a daily basis, but there's so much that has to do with the algorithm, with the pricing, the reviews. You get one bad review, like, you're automatically put on page 7. So all these things have to be such a tight standard, or else you're bleeding really quick.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, that's why the platform Airbnb is what it is, right? And they're the biggest and best in the space, and it's obviously for a reason. You obviously mentioned that you were still working your 9 to 5 and working at Cutco and kind of doing this on the side. What was, and I feel like a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of founders have this, that are working 2 jobs and stuff and trying to make it happen. Was there like a inflection point or situation where you're like, okay, when this happens or when I meet this goal, then I'm going all in on it? Talk about that transition period. I find that very interesting.
Yeah, 100%. And I've had a lot of friends ask me this too. Like, when was your switch mode, essentially? So once the Airbnb business was covering my living expenses, let's call it, my necessities, then I knew that I could move back home, stay with my mom for a little bit until I get the business growing back on the Airbnb side, and then fully start growing the business. So 2021 to 2023, I was always talked to at Cutco as if I'm getting promoted next. And it was just conversation after conversation. The carrot was just dangling for years.
Yeah.
And I did everything that my manager told me at the time and still wasn't getting promoted. So once my necessities were covered at the Airbnb business, I decided to move on from Cutco and just start growing this. I think I heard a quote a while back, something along the lines of, if you don't see yourself working with somebody for a day, then why are you going to spend a lifetime with them? And my previous manager, great guy, learned a lot from him, but I just didn't see the long term with him anymore.
Obviously at Cutco, I'm sure you were in a very primarily heavy sales position, right? Whether you loved it or hated it, what were some of those kind of early, I guess just more so gritty things that you were going through to sell on the Cutco side that you took with you when you transitioned to the Airbnb business full time?
Yeah, great question. So in Cutco, I sold for about a year and a half. Then I went straight into management. On the sales side, I'd say rapport and certainty with the clients that I was working with. If they trust me, they like me, they want to work with me. And that's translated to the Airbnb side quite a bit, because now we're selling owners on having multiple units in their building. In terms of management of people, which is what I did for the last 4 years of my career there.
Yep.
4 to 6 years. It's not easy. Like a lot of the people we started with in the business have been friends and family, which there's a lot of triggers, let's call them. A lot of people stepping on each other's toes, or a lot of people doing things their way, and managing that whole psychological part of a human is challenging. But I would say, like I said, from the sales side, the rapport, certainty, hard work. I mean, in Cutco, we were making 100, 200 calls a day, 20 calls an hour was the standard. So like learning how to hustle, not taking no from an answer was great. Again, on the management side, working with people, having them trust you, having them all be aligned with the vision that matters, and making that happen together, I think, is really important. So those are a couple of things that Cutco really taught me.
Awesome. You talk a lot about systems too, and I think one of the key things that I've taken away from just like learning about your business and what you do is the kind of trickle down effect of systems and different teams that you guys could embed into your business, right? Like maintenance, cleaning, and that kind of support. At what point did you realize with the business, okay, we're starting to make some money, there's some legitimate traction here, but for this thing to click and really take off to the next level, we have to incorporate X, Y, and Z? I guess, like, what were those aspects that really shifted you guys to a different level, and how did you implement it?
I think it was 2021. We had 10 units. It was me and Josh, and we had our buddy Brogan that we hired do all of the guest messaging. So that was good until we hit, 30-ish units. We're like, we need a VA. Like, there's no way we could handle all of these people, all these clients coming in and out. We had maybe 3 or 4 cleaners at the time, and things were kind of just band-aided, and we fixed things here and there. But once we had 30 units, it was a shit show, to say the least. So we had, after that, I think we hired 3 or 4 VAs. Now we have 10. Cleaners, we have 30 or 40 at this point. So I would say once we hit 10, after 10, having 3 people run the business was not feasible. Now we have my business partner, Josh, who does a lot of the back end. His fiance is our operator / she holds the standards on the team. Our cleaners, maintenance side, like you said, but the systems are constantly changing. Now with the hotel that we're taking over, it's like a whole nother layer of maintenance, a whole nother layer of cleaning, because it's not just cleaning that unit, it's cleaning the whole building now.
Right.
And laundry and doing that. So as we scale, things are breaking. Once you notice it, fix it over and over.
Yeah. What have been the most, important processes or systems that have helped relieve time in the business and taken you out of it to focus on those big picture things like new investments in this hotel?
A lot of softwares have helped. We use Gusty as a PMS, which manages all of our listings. So all of our messaging goes through there. So that software has been great to be the central hub for our business. We have a revenue manager that we use now. His name's Prue. He lives out in Dubai. He works with Price Labs, has his own team just monitoring our pricing constantly, so we're not underpricing or overpricing depending on the month or week. Software for cleaning, we use a software called Breezeway.
Nice.
Breezeway is a app where a cleaner can post pictures beforehand, afterhand, has all the inventory checklists, etc. And then we have someone monitoring all those pictures to make sure they look like our listings. We've hired and trained people to move up into management, so they manage their own set of cleaners or own set of maintenance, or even on the VA side, we'll have someone running that department. That's held accountable, and then if anything goes wrong in that department, we obviously talk to that person first, and then they talk to their team. Slack is a big one.
Love it. Yeah.
That's our main communication channel. We have noise monitors. We use Minute. Minute is a noise monitor software that will pick up sound above like 80 decibels or 90 decibels, depending on the property. It'll automatically call a guest and text them to make sure they lower it down. Central communication phone, we use Open Phone. I think it's Q now, for any client or guest to call us through one number, so we don't have a bunch of numbers. Back in the day in 2019, 2020, we had all guests calling myself or Josh, and it was just way too much.
It's a mess.
I think those are the main apps as of now.
Very cool. Yeah, I feel like software is obviously it's the bedrock of efficiencies within any business nowadays. I want to talk about a couple other concepts before we pivot into Plymouth and what you're doing on the hotel side. But I know you have your partner, Josh. You mentioned how impactful has he been in this stage and in this phase with you guys? Like, I guess like what does he take care of that allows you to do what you do best, and kind of like how have you guys been able to support each other? Because so much of the founder journey, entrepreneurial challenges is kind of, a lot of people go through it alone, and people talk about the lonely chapter. I'm assuming, you know, you still get those same emotions and feelings, but definitely a lot more of a kind of support system to have a partner alongside you.
Yeah, Josh he's like a bulldozer. He'll knock walls down all day. I mean, the risks that we've taken over the last, since I've quit Cutco, have been massive. Taking on so much debt, so much overhead, but he's really helped me see the numbers. Like, obviously I know the numbers, but sometimes with having 100 properties and all that overhead, you forget like what's coming. So he's helped me a lot with like the back end, whether it's cash flow statements, whether it's projections, whether it's the legal side of the business, whether it's registration with the city, whether it's getting a hotel license that we had to get for the Plymouth, P&Ls, cleaning up all of our books, a lot of the financial and legal side, I would say. That allows me to really focus on vision, design, what our units look like, where does our team need to grow. Him and his fiance Patty are just very get shit done type of people.
Love it.
And that's helped quite a bit in the business.
Very good. Speaking on like locations too, I know you kind of dove into what makes some properties better than others, especially in our market here. But I want to talk about just that, right? There's a lot of misinformation as well on the real estate and housing market in Chicago and Chicagoland. I want to just generally get your opinion on what that looks like right now, and you think like what is not the safest but smartest place for young individuals that are looking to either buy or rent a home or do something, right? You work in that space, you see the market and the trends and how that affects your business.
Yep.
I guess like what's your take on all that?
Yeah, I think this answer will probably change in the next 3 to 6 months. But what I truly believe right now is going to be here to stay is anything closer to the A-class parts of the city, the River North, the West Loop, the Old Towns, the Lincoln Park, anywhere where there's constant business flow, because you're not just relying on vacation, because the vacation market with the world politics is changing, and Chicago is still a main hub for business. It's still a main hub for law. It's still a massive hub for sports. It's still a massive hub for these concerts and these festivals that are happening. So the closer you can be to any attraction, or the more attractions you can be closer to, the better. Same thing with schools, like graduations, families are constantly visiting their kids. Like, if you're in those areas, you're fine. At least downtown. In terms of out of Chicago, I believe that lakes, forest preserves, something a little bit off grid, but there's still fun things to do near that area are great. I love Oak Park in terms of like being right outside the city with very little regulations at this point. I have a buddy, Chris. He has 50 Airbnbs in Waukegan, and those are great because you have the Naval School, you have Six Flags, you still have people going in between Milwaukee and Chicago, and you still have the lake right there. So anywhere where there's still downtown, like I said, the closer in the city, closer to the A-class parts are best. Outside the city, Oak Park, and then anywhere close to lakes, close to schools, close to attractions for people to do.
Makes sense.
Year round, yeah.
Yeah. Are you guys solely planted in Illinois right now, or are you in other states, other cities?
We started to expand to other cities and states. So we have 4 in Houston, which hasn't been great because there was no regulations when we started. So it was like the wild, wild west. Anyone and their grandma could have an Airbnb.
Sure.
But with the World Cup coming, that's going to be a lot more profitable now. We have a few in Minnesota that we manage for clients. We have one in Nakusa, Sand Valley area, right next to the golf course there. That crushes it. We have 2 in Mexico, in Cabo.
Sick.
Was sick. Still is sick, except
Yeah.
there's a lot of...
A lot of headline news with the cartel. I get it.
Yep.
Hopefully that should bounce back always.
And the competition is just insane in Cabo. You have Waldorfs, you have the Four Seasons, you're competing against the top of the line hotels. We have a couple in Florida. We have a couple in Maryland that we manage for a buddy. We have one coming up in Austin that my buddy's purchasing. So we started expanding outside of Chicago for more of like friends of friends that had properties that we would manage for.
Sure.
And then we have a couple arbitrage units outside of Chicago, but mostly it's management clients.
Very cool. What percentage of that is split up between like high rise and buildings versus like standalone properties?
Most of Chicago we have are high rises or mid rises.
Okay.
The single families are mostly properties that we manage for owners that live in their part of the year, and then the other part of the year we Airbnb. So most of them are high rises or mid rises.
Love it. What's the total amount of units in the portfolio now? And then I guess like let's manifest a little. I want to throw some goals out there. I know we didn't just start the year, but 2026 and onward, I mean, where do you guys want to be over the next year, 2 years, portfolio size and everything included?
Yeah, so we'll be at 110 with this hotel by next week. And right now, where my mind goes is I just want to stabilize everything and make the design better, add more amenities, do whatever we can to really make sure that our properties are doing even better, or the properties that aren't as great to increase the value there. After this year, once things cool down a little bit, I would like to get to 150 next. We'll do about $10 million in revenue, but we've spent so much cash on growth that it hasn't felt like that, just because it's been grow nonstop. And I just want to like actually enjoy some of the growth now. The goal next year is to start buying land and start building more not more wedding venues. We don't have any wedding venues, but we want something more off grid for people to actually connect with each other and get away from the craziness of the city.
Very cool.
So like some tiny home communities and a wedding venue is like the next vision.
You threw out a big number there, right? With the 10 million in revenue. It's obviously not an easy thing to do. Talk to us realistically about what realistic margins look like in this business and what people are maybe not accounting for that they see online, but that is the reality behind the scenes in terms of, your top overhead, which we kind of talked through a little bit, but what are those like hard expenses and real realities around kind of what margins look like within your space?
Yeah, margins are getting tight. As I mentioned earlier, as rent rises and the city travel changes, you have to be really competitive to have your properties actually get booked. So I think from last year, another mistake we've made last year is every year we do this for some reason. We'll stop it this year, but we got 20 more arbitrage units back in November. So we're losing money November, December, January, February until St. Patty's. So carrying all that year over year. Margins, we're hoping to increase them this year. Will be about 10%-ish, depending on where we can cut costs. But a lot of that has been, we've been carrying debt from the previous year. So it might even be a little bit less this year. That's why next year I'm just like, let's actually enjoy this and stop growing so much.
Where have you guys gone to leverage debt? How have you been able to access capital over the course of the past few years here?
Last year, so that situation that we got the 20 more units, we did the math and realized we are not going to have cash for the winter if we don't get some kind of loan. So we got a Capitus loan from American Express back in November to get us through the winter. Every year I'll do like a zero interest credit card push. So this last year we got like $80,000 in credit cards that we're able to push the payments off for a year. So a lot of this year will be, let's just get everything taken care of. So yeah, that loan from Capitus, it was more expensive last year, but since we did it again with a lot more equity or cash, that rate went down. Interest-free credit cards. My business partner pulled out some from his 401k, so we're doing whatever we did whatever we can to get us through the winter this year.
No, that makes sense. I mean, when the vision's strong, and you guys will obviously make it back. So I want to shift gears a little bit to this hotel project. It seems super cool, and obviously it's not every day you're talking to somebody who's trying to pull that off with everything else you have going on. I'm curious how that opportunity came about, and how many rooms, like how does that differ from what you're doing on just the basic property side, right? A hotel is obviously an entire operation in itself.
Yep.
So how does that differ size in that opportunity?
Yeah, so back in October, we saw headlines that Sonder was going bankrupt. Sonder used to be the largest Airbnb company in the world. Their model was they would have master leases on these buildings. So they never owned any properties. They just had master leases to run essentially a whole building, being all Airbnb all over the country, all over the world. So we saw headlines. I reached out to every single real estate developer or mogul or fund, person with a fund that might know somebody that owns some of these properties. My buddy Rob, he had a friend that owns the property on Jackson that we were originally interested in. And we were about to go look at it, except the doors were locked. They were chain closed. Nobody was allowed to view any of the buildings when Sonder went bankrupt. So then we found out that they had a bankruptcy auction, essentially, for these properties. So we ended up bidding as like a blind bid before we could get into the bid.
Mm-hmm.
And we weren't sure on what to do. We were like, all right, let's just bid on 2 properties, see what happens. We get onto the auction. There's like 20 or 30 people on for like the whole states, but the first properties that went up for auction were Chicago. The first 2 that we bid on, that we just were not sure on how much we should bid. First property we bid 130. The second person that bid, their bid was 30,000. So at the end of that first round, they're like, all right, you guys just won the lease. And we're like, there's no way I'm paying 80 grand more
Yeah.
than the number 2 guy. And the second property's next. We were at, I think, 150 for the bid. Number 2 is at 50, which, same thing. We were like, we're not paying that much if number 2 is here, but we got to figure this out. So anyways, the auction was over. After the auction, we found out that the property that we're taking over now had a bunch of debt that wasn't paid for by Sonder. So Sonder went bankrupt. They owed X amount in rents every single month, but the last 3 months weren't paid for. So to get the property, you had to pay not only the bid cost, but also the last 2-3 months of unpaid rents to make the landlord whole. So it's been last 3 months have been a lot of negotiations with the landlord of like, well, we don't have $400,000 to pay for all this rents. What can we do to abate it or pay it off over time, etc. So we finally came up with some good terms that work with us, work with the numbers. So even though the bid was $50,000, we don't own the building. We just own the master lease that Sonder had.
Okay.
But the unpaid rents will go into the next 8 years of us running the operation. The reason why we wanted this building and the other building that I'll talk about here in a little bit is because they were the most profitable in Chicago. And the locations are great. This one's right by Ida B. Wells and Dearborn. So right by Grand Park, right by the Loop, prime location right off the Blue Line. But these last 3 months have been nonstop. I don't want to say full renovation. It's been like a full designed rehab. Everything was there, all the furniture, all the mattresses, all of the couches, everything was there, was just freshening it up. But yeah, why we decided to take it is because the properties were most profitable. The second property on Erie, right by Tao, was the one we really wanted. But once we came off the auction, we found out that the owners of the building, LG Group, already housed another tenant in the building. So they were open to us having it, but they wanted to see our financials. They wanted to see if we could actually do this, and they didn't want to kick out the next tenants. So we decided to walk from that one, even though that one was more plug and play.
Sure.
Why we even decided to do both, or why we even entered this deal, was running a whole building in Chicago is something that you normally can't do with the regulations. But the fact that they were grandfathered in with the hotel license and they already had everything set up for an Airbnb just makes the whole system and process just a lot easier.
Sure. No, that makes a lot of sense. With this now, I guess, when do you guys project being able to get that open?
So we launched 3 floors last week.
Okay.
So we had our first 8 check-ins.
Congrats.
Thanks. The whole building should be fully live by Monday.
Very cool. That's going to be how many floors, how many rooms?
There's 30 units.
Okay.
Each unit has 2, 3, or 4 bedrooms. So I think it's a total of 90, or like 88 rooms or something like that. But 10 floors of units, three units on each floor.
Very cool. How has this project differed from anything you've taken on with, your normal properties in Airbnb? Like, what are some of the hotel-based differences?
Insurance.
Yeah.
So that's definitely the biggest, not the biggest thing, but the amount of insurance we've had to get, the liability. The Airbnb business, you're going through the city and the regulations there, and whatever happens in Chicago is easier to get past. Once we got the hotel license, it was going through federal regulations and federal like background checks and all of that. So insurance regulations, getting approved is just a longer process. It took us 45, 60 days to get a hotel license, which normally you get an Airbnb license in a week or 2. Inspections, So we had to have an insurance inspection, and we had to have a city inspector come out to make sure it's feasible.
Right.
Luckily, Sounder already had the Airbnb or the hotel license, so the inspection wasn't as intense as it normally would if it was a brand new building.
Sure.
What else is different is normally in a building, if we have 6 units, we'll send a couple cleaners to hit these floors, these 3 units, and then these 3. Now you're running essentially a hotel cleaning type of operations where cleaners are coming in there to clean the lobby, the gym, the rooftop, the elevators, taking out all the trash. A lot of the units we turn for Airbnb are in the unit. We'll do the washing and drying there. Now we need commercial grade washers and dryers because they're just not getting done fast enough. And it's a whole building of Airbnb, so it's also more prone to those parties.
Yep.
And having security on site is important because I can't just call a security guard at 2 a.m. Like having somebody there just to kind of set the standard is we're right next to Taco Bell cantina too. So like we have to have security there to monitor
That's funny.
not the street, but the sidewalk and also in the units too.
What are some other like revenue driving channels through having a hotel that you could push aside from normal Airbnb stuff as well?
Yeah, great question. That's the next thing we're getting down. What we're working on now is getting more restaurants partnerships in the area. I'm not too concerned about the revenue generated right now. My main focus is to have people come with us and know exactly where to eat, where to drink, where to hang out. So that's my main focus. In terms of revenue, we're ordering a couple vending machines from Alibaba to have like
Sick.
everything that you can think of for those higher quality vending machines, vapes or Zins or Xboxes, whatever people want to buy. Kyle with Axel Luxury, so partnership there, so that'll be easier to promote versus like someone in Bucktown that wants a car they could just pull up next to the hotel. What else? I've had people reach out to me for different events. So whether someone wants to set up like a yoga studio or have a class on the rooftop, people have reached out to me there. But right now we're just focused on let's get this up to standard.
Yeah.
And then the ideas are there. We just have to start thinking about
cool.
that next too.
Very cool. And obviously you're documenting a lot of this journey through social media. Even on your personal, you're talking a lot about kind of your journey and the wisdom that you've learned along the way and some educational pieces on the day-to-day of your business. What inspired that? And I guess how has that drove impact and growth in your business in ways I guess you didn't expect?
Yeah. I'm not sure if you know Yanni. He's got the 2 bowling alleys in
Yes. Yeah.
Cicero. So I met him through my buddy Zach Molzer. Zach Molzer did Cutco back in 2019, 2018. Zach was in town this summer. He invited Yanni to come out, have a couple of drinks with us, and following these guys and hearing their story of like what they're doing and what it's done for them just made me want to dive all in. It's been cool. I mean, I've had different vendors reach out and like people that want to be a part of this reach out. So we have the owner of Dollop Coffee, Dan from Dollop Coffee. Nice. He wants to put all of his coffee in our units. We're talking about like a specialty drink for Dream Rentals guests to go to the coffee shop for just those type of clients, and they'll have like a free drink to try. We're working on like different vendors, whether it's popcorn, chips, like different local vendors. We want to bring Chicago into the units. So that's created a lot of interest there that we're working on. I've interviewed 4 or 5 previous Sonder employees that know the whole building inside and out. So that's been cool to actually understand the building without trying to figure out ourselves. A lot of vendors that do like travel planning for families, sports, schools in the area, UIC, DePaul, that want to like house students or internship programs. So like it's been helpful for the business in terms of like more clients, vendors, workers, employees. People want to be a part of it. It's been cool to see that come into fruition the most.
Yeah, all that support I'm sure is important and helpful. It leads into my next question, right? You're involved in so much. I'm sure you're working very long hours, extremely taxing. Obviously you need to do something to de-stress in this world. I guess, like, how do you take a step out of it and kind of reflect?
That's a good question. So I struggle with slowing down for sure.
Yeah.
In the mornings now, I'll wake up, do some Wim Hof breathing or Tony Robbins priming to just get my mind right. Getting more into faith, so reading the Bible has been helpful. I'm also training for a half Ironman again and a full Ironman, so that's been
Sick.
My de-stressor,
Nice.
essentially. Big sauna guy, so I'll hit the saunas at night just to decompress. But then like Friday night after 5, I try to keep that as like my time off with my girlfriend. Saturday I'll work till like 2, but again, I want to protect the rest of the night just to like decompress, reset.
Yeah.
And then Sunday mornings up to like 5, I'll just chill, get my mind right, plan out the week. Won't do too much like heavy work there.
No, that balance is super important. Obviously you probably go through seasons, and probably like right now as you're launching Plymouth and stuff, like you need to do that. You need to work those hours, but it's important to detach as well.
100%.
Well, I mean, you're obviously onto something very special. We have a closing question, kind of a tradition that we have on Link Live. And the question is, if you were able to go back in time to a particular age and tell yourself something that you already know now, what would that age be, and what would that message be?
What comes to mind right now is it's less about like revenue is vanity, profit is sanity. We've been chasing like all these units, all this growth for so long, but in reality, like that doesn't matter. It's like, let's be more strategic with the properties we can. Just put the ego to the side. We don't need to grow so much. And with that, it's as you grow a business, it's less about the numbers. It's more about who you're becoming to actually be able to handle that stress and that growth. So like slow down, take care of yourself, grow, because you are the cat, like you're the chokehold of your business if you don't grow.
Love it. Very well said. Sebastian, I appreciate you being here. It's a great conversation. Tell the cameras where they could reach out to you, contact you, follow you, all that stuff.
Cool. My Instagram is Sebastian or Seabass ___ TIAN. My business Instagram, a lot easier, The Dream Rentals. You can follow us there. Our website, thedreamrentals.com, just to see all of our properties and what we're doing out there too.
Amazing. Sebastian, thank you so much. Link Live, it's another episode.
Thanks for having me.